through the papers now, and joining us this morning, former Conservative advisor Claire Pearsall and late editor of the I newspaper, Benjamin Butterworth. Morning to both of you.
Morning.
And she's all over the newspapers today. Who would have thought? Meghan, Claire.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting. So Meghan and Harry have said that in due course, in a matter of time, they will bring over Lilibet, who is 10 months old, and Archie, who is now 2, to come and meet the Queen. And it's a real shame the Queen has never met her namesake.
Yeah.
And you think, you can do it over Zoom, as many families have had to, but I really think that they need to do this. It's the Jubilee, the Platinum Jubilee year. It would just make everything so much nicer if they brought the children over, see their great-grandmother. I mean, wouldn't that just be a lovely story to have this
I think when there's a rift in the family, and unfortunately they literally moved away so far, it's very difficult to just sort of bump into each other and maybe keep things going. But at least if they made the visit on Thursday and said hello to the Queen and even Prince Charles, maybe that's the start of a bridge building.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this is the start of something, and it's really important that you take these steps a little bit slowly when there's been a rift like this. You can't just rush in and pretend nothing has happened and pretend everything is fine, because it clearly isn't. But I just, I think it would be so lovely. I think it would be lovely for the country. They've not done themselves any favours with what they've done, and it might buy back a little bit of good favour for them, and I think for the Queen will be the best thing after the years that she has had.
I would agree.
They could do that for her, couldn't they? There's going to be a balcony moment at some point during that Platinum celebration, and it would be nice to see them all on the balcony looking as though they quite like each other.
I don't know. I mean, look, I think it would be lovely if they met Lilibet. I think it's kind of repugnant that they haven't introduced Lilibet to the Queen. And you can imagine, it's not a pleasant thing to think about, but the Queen's 95 years old. She's been relatively open about her poor health in the last year since losing her husband. It's clear that any 95-year-old doesn't have very long left. And you can imagine if you were Lilibet and you grew up having never got that photo with the Queen.
That's right, yeah.
I just think that would be appalling, as well as the fact that the Queen hasn't met her great-grandchild.
I do wonder if we, and I could be wrong on this, but whether if we apply our sort of family values and family structure to the royals, and it is very different.
Which Prince Harry has said himself. He's talked about it being like living in the Truman Show, that everyone is trapped in the prison that is the royal family and feels like they can't escape. But, you mentioned the balcony moment. First of all, I doubt either of them are going to turn up to the Platinum Jubilee unless this security issue is solved, because they've said unless they are able to pay for British intelligence and security access, then they won't be returning to this country in any sort of professional duties. But even if they did come back, I'd feel uncomfortable about having them on that balcony next to the Queen. After all the disrespect they've shown, I think they have to give something as well.
Yes.
And I don't think at this stage they've illustrated that.
Well, maybe they need a refreshing moment to clear their heads, like a dip in the sea, Benjamin, this Easter weekend.
But that was very smooth, Stephen.
Oh, most professional.
Was it? Sorry.
The Daily Star's front page. So it's going to be about 22 degrees over this weekend, which is the hottest we've had it. Hotter than the Costa del Sol, even. So your guest earlier in Malaga, I'm afraid, has gone in the wrong place. But the RNLI has warned that it is freezing cold in the water. It's about 8 degrees, and they've warned people about cold shock from dipping in the water and how cold it's going to be at British beaches.
Ease your way in. That's the key with cold water.
Is that what you do?
Yeah, you have to tiptoe in. I mean, do that very British thing about sort of stand there for a minute and let yourself get used to it. But what I find is quite funny is they're telling the great British public, who have lived through all manner of temperatures, to take a sweater with them to the beach. Now, I've grown up in a family.
I know, do we really need to be told?
Absolutely. We used to take practically every set of clothing that you could imagine to the beach when I was a kid. The car was full of jumpers, coats, umbrellas, wellies, sunscreen,
everything.
You name it. So I don't think we need to be told that, and I think you do. You just creep in. I don't think you need to keep out of the water. It's nice and refreshing, but, I tend to go up to my knees and decide that's enough.
Me too.
That's very
Absolutely.
sensible.
Why push yourself?
Mind you, all respect to the RNLI, they do an amazing job, and they will be concerned won't they, about deaths in the water this weekend?
And there will always be people who won't be told, and there will always be people who will run in, perhaps after having too many drinks at a lunchtime, and get into trouble. And 400 people a year drown in the waters around the country. So they do a very, very valuable job.
Yeah, so just be sensible if you're going in the water. Respect the water, as they say. They say, knees, that's far enough in.
And take a beach bag full of things, stuff. Everything from blankets to sunscreen.
To the Express, Claire, looking at the boost to our economy, because we're sort of staying at home a bit more.
Yeah, no, I don't know if this is an enforced stay at home because of problems with passports and travel abroad, but also the weather is stunning, the British scenery is stunning, and you were mentioning Barrow-in-Furness.
Oh, yes.
I spent a lot of my holidays, my summer holidays, my grandparents lived in that direction,
did they?
just outside of Penrith.
Oh, right.
So I've been around there, and it's absolutely beautiful. So why don't we spend more time in this country? I know people are desperate to go off overseas, but we have some absolutely brilliant beaches and great towns and cities, and I think people are rediscovering the country that they live in. So the 2 million boost is much needed.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that happened in the lockdown, didn't it? That we all explored our locales a bit more.
Yeah, but do you know, I've never been to Cornwall, and because I grew up north, so it wasn't an obvious holiday.
No, it's a long way to go.
To stay at home. And I really want to go, and I considered it sort of during the various stages of the pandemic when that stuff was possible. But it's really, really expensive. It's more expensive than going overseas. And for me, that's what puts me off.
Actually, that's true,
I'm not
yes.
sure I can afford a week in Cornwall in the summer.
Yeah.
It is quite an exclusive Cornwall, actually, isn't it? It's beautiful when you get there, but yes, a lot of the hotels and places are expensive.
I think I'll have to become a world leader and go to G8 if I'm to get a nice...
Yeah, that's right.
Or-
No, I've never been for a holiday down that part of the world, to be honest.
Absolutely beautiful place. Gorgeous
But there
Cornwall.
are other places. I mean, there are
Yes, there are.
in Wales and in other places in the southwest. You don't have to go down to Cornwall. It's very fashionable, it's very beautiful, but it's also full. Along the south coast, you know, across the Hampshire coast, Bournemouth, places like that, and into Kent, you know, my own county, we have some stunning places to visit. So I would recommend that everybody does that.
Yes.
Or Scotland, because
Oh, I love Scotland.
I've been right up to the Highlands, and actually it's absolutely
Brilliant.
gorgeous there. You know, especially as someone that lives, you know, in a big city, to get away to places like the Highlands, I think is just good for the soul.
Or Cotswolds. Yeah, actually, get your ideas coming in. Love some ideas from you on that. Where are the most beautiful places? Probably you're very proud of where you are at the moment. Can you recommend any great beauty spots that we should all be visiting and maybe doing our bit for the economy?
Fancy a bit of Scotland. I fancy a trip to Wales. Actually, I've got relatives in Wales. I'd love to do a bit of that, actually.
There's this fantastic hotel in Wales that's in the dark area, you know, what they call dark skies.
The
area.
dark skies
Yeah.
zone. Oh, lovely.
And because I was researching it for an article I was writing, and there's this hotel and it's got like pods in the countryside. And if the sky is clear, and it usually is, and the stars are absolutely incredible because it's a deliberately dark sky area, you press a button and the roof just opens up, so you can sleep you can literally sleep under the stars. And apparently it is brilliant. I'd love to go there.
Yeah, well, I think we should
Ever been there? I want to find out more.
Yeah,
please.
that sounds absolutely wonderful. I fancy it.
GBNEWS at gbnews.uk, please.
Now, you are a Twitter fiend, Benjamin.
Do you know, I've not tweeted in about 2 days because I
Was
think...
that good?
Is
Yeah,
that
it's not like saying
big
I've
for
not
you?
had a drink
That's a big
since
deal for you,
Thursday.
is it?
Exactly. You know, my bank holiday weekend treat is to not be looking at Twitter. It drives me mad. But someone who is looking at Twitter is Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, likely to be the world's first trillionaire. And he wants to buy Twitter because he says it's no longer a bastion of freedom of speech. So he thinks that there's too many rules, there's too many people being kicked off, and he's put in $43 billion to buy it. That would give him a lot of sway over their policies and who can say what on the platform. Now the shareholders of Twitter are doing a thing which is a poison pill, I think it's called, which is where if you try to buy more than 15% of it, then existing shareholders get it cheaper to try and stop him buying it, or at least make him pay a lot more to get control.
So they basically don't want him to buy
I
it.
don't want him.
No, and I think it's an established thing that they don't want, you know, businesses don't like people sort of raiding their company with malintent. But a lot of people would question whether his freedom of speech arguments is is malintent.
It depends, Claire. What is freedom of speech?
Well, that was the point I was going to make. So what is freedom of speech to you and to me and to Elon Musk and to Twitter are going to be very, very separate things. And I think we all have to understand that there is responsibility for what we put out there. I use Twitter quite a lot of the time. I get abuse from, you know, one section of society or another, and you just have to kind of put up with that. So I'm not sure I buy the free speech argument. I just think that he is an incredibly rich man who is looking to break into that kind of tech platform because he doesn't have a foothold in it at the moment. I don't know what he would do with it that was any different. You know, it kind of is what it is, and there are other things out there. So why doesn't he
You'd think
go?
he'd be busy enough sending men to the International Space Station and sending Teslas into space. It's him that's a
Yes,
Tesla.
And he's got two kids. One of them's only about 6 months old. You'd think that would keep him pretty busy.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow. There
He
you
wants
go.
to get his hands on Twitter as well. Strange.
It's been very good to see you both this morning. Claire, Benjamin, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.